I hope that doesn't disappoint too many people. But we are going to be getting hands-on with Gemini CLI, with the model context protocol and agent skills. We'll put those things together and use it for the example of how to orchestrate browser interactions using nothing more than natural language prompts into Gemini CLI. I'll use that to demonstrate a user interface testing scenario using natural language prompting. But a quick disclaimer, I have no experience of UI testing. I'm not an expert, but that's kind of the point. It's about how we can demonstrate using these agentic tools, pulling them all together in order to do a thing that we perhaps have no idea how to do in a fast and automated manner, but we couldn't do it without AI, and now we can. So I recently authored a codelab on this topic, and we'll run through it today. So we'll go through the steps. We'll go through it step by step in real time. I'll show it on my screen. You guys can follow along. I'll explain concepts as we go. I'll try to provide additional information and maybe demo some additional features, answer your questions. And as I said as well, you know, if the community can answer the questions, that's great. If you're here today and you're thinking, I don't know if this session's for me, then what I would say is I believe this should be applicable to folks of any skill level, any level of knowledge around agentic applications, Gemini CLI. So if you've never written any code and you've never heard of Gemini CLI, this is going to be great for you because we'll start at the ground floor. But if you are an experienced AI developer and you already know your way around Gemini CLI, I think you'll still hopefully get some stuff out of this, maybe learn some tips and tricks for getting the most out of the tools. Okay, before I continue, what I'm just going to do is I want to put in the chat a link to a document, and I will pin that. And also let me start sharing my screen. Pick an entire screen. Let's go with this one. Okay, has that come up for everyone?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, awesome. So the link that I've just put in the chat, if I just bring that over here, yeah, it has a whole bunch of useful stuff that we'll use as we're going through. So first of all, of course, the codelab itself, that's this, I guess. Hope you know, open that, make sure you're all in there. Then next in here we've got the GitHub repo which has a demo application, and we're going to clone this application as we go on through the codelab. If you do have access to GitHub, then you can open this repo. Feel free to star it. You know, it's good for me. The more stars, the better. You don't have to, of course. And then there's a whole bunch of other links for how to do stuff in here, which I'll talk through as we go. So prereqs then. Firstly, I would recommend. Wow, over 150 now. It keeps going up. Amazing, very cool. Okay, firstly, I'd recommend doing this with your personal device, because that will avoid any restrictions, any kind of corporate policies that might block the stuff that we're doing from working. That being said, I know there's a lot of EPAM folks here. I have tested it on an EPAM device and it does work, so you can use that. Next thing, a lot of code labs folks like to do in Google Cloud Shell. If you're familiar with Google Cloud Shell, that won't work for this lab, and it's because of a specific requirement of a tool browser MCP that we're going to use later on. That won't work in Cloud Shell. I'll explain why when we get to it. So you'll want to be running this on your local device. If you haven't got Git, then you'll need it. So you can just run the Git install here. I'm assuming most people do have it. And then of course, the main thing that we need in this lab is Gemini CLI. That's where we're going to be spending most of our time. If you haven't got it yet, there's a bit of guidance for, you know, the install link is here. It is kind of a platform agnostic tool. It will run on Windows, it will run on Linux, it will run on Mac. Now, the codelab instructions are all written assuming that you're running on Linux or Mac. If you're running in Windows and you want to use Windows Command Prompt or Windows PowerShell, then the commands, they won't quite work as they are. That might be a pain for you. If folks do have this problem and they're using Command Prompt as you go through the labs, just ping in the chat and I'll give you the alternative commands that we need to run instead. But what I would also recommend is for those folks that like Windows but want to be using the standard Linux commands, I really like using the WSL, so Windows Subsystem for Linux, as a way of running Linux actually inside your Windows environment, and then all the kind of Linux native tools and Linux native commands will work for you. So that's just a great option in general. Node.js is on here because it is a prereq for running Gemini CLI. Node.js is effectively a runtime that allows you to run JavaScript on any environment, and Gemini CLI is built in that technology. So, okay, that's I guess that's kind of it for the prereqs. Now, next thing, when you launch Gemini CLI, which you would do by just typing Gemini once you've installed it. By the way, I tend to use the command Gemi because I've written an alias which sets up some environment stuff. So, but whenever I type Gemi, you can just you can type Gemini. And the other thing I'm doing is I'm always going to run it with the Flash model because it's faster for demo purposes. You don't have to worry about that. I'll explain more about that later. But when you do launch Gemini CLI for the first time, for those that haven't done it, you will be prompted to authenticate to Google, because you need to authenticate to Google in order to use the Gemini model. And there are different ways you can authenticate. And the one I would recommend that you use is the option that appears that says login with Google. And when you see that option, you can provide your personal Gmail address, and then it's really easy. You just do a login and then you're in. If you do that, then you basically benefit from the generous free quota of Gemini use that you get with Gemini CLI. So everything that you do within Gemini CLI today will be completely free. It won't cost you anything. For those of you that have a Gemini API key and know what I'm talking about, of course, you're free to use it. And the last thing, as Romin's also pointed out, we have shared some free credits with you. I think it gives you $5 of Google Cloud consumption. You don't need that for this lab because everything we're doing today will be free, but you can use those free credits just to experiment with Google, play with whatever you want, play in the console, and I think they're valid for about 6 months. So feel free to play with those in your own time. How's everyone doing? Everyone happy so far? Okay, cool. Now, I know there's I'd love to see a crowd running across the screen. It's my favorite thing. Okay, so there's a range of folks on this call, right? And I know there are folks that haven't used Gemini CLI before. So we'll get into the code lab in a minute. But before we start that, I'm going to just give a few minutes introducing Gemini CLI itself as a tool and doing a couple of demos with it. I hope that's okay with everyone. So Gemini CLI is a tool created by Google, but it's entirely open source. So you can check out the code in GitHub. I've put the link into that document. You can contribute code to it. You can raise issues. You can write documentation, all of that stuff. So open source there. And what it does is it brings the power of Gemini, the model that you all use in the Gemini app, but it brings that power to your terminal. Now, for those of you out there that are terminal geeks and developers that love the terminal, you'll all be thinking, well, you have me at CLI. But for those of you that don't spend your life in the terminal and maybe you don't even know what a terminal is, then here's the thing. Gemini CLI unlocks superpowers that just can 10x your productivity, regardless of what it is that you do in your day job. So whether you're a developer, whether you create content for a living, whether you're an architect or a project manager, it doesn't matter. I firmly believe that Gemini CLI can change your world and the way that you work on a daily basis. And it can make you a terminal god without actually knowing anything about the terminal, which is pretty cool. So what makes it so awesome? Well, to start with, Gemini CLI, apart from giving you access to Gemini, has a bunch of built-in tools. So let me just show you some of those. So it can do things like it will do a Google web search for you if you need it to. It can fetch pages from the internet. But more than that, it can read and write to files locally in your file system. So if you have a local file, it can understand that, it can comprehend that. It could be an image, it could be a picture, it could be a document, whatever. And it is fully aware of your own local environment and operating system, and it can execute terminal commands for you. So it can execute commands in your operating system. So when you combine all of those things, it's really powerful, and I'll show you in a minute why. Also, for those folks that do a lot of development and are using Gemini Code Assist, maybe in VS Code or in IntelliJ or Anti-Gravity, it can do everything that Gemini Code Assist can do. So it'll understand your whole workspace, it can write code, it can create unit tests, it can explain code, it can refactor your entire code base in one hit. So you get all of that power. When you're using it, as I was mentioning briefly earlier, you can select the model that you want to use. By default, it's set to auto. And when it's in auto, basically it will use Gemini 3 Pro when it thinks you need the power of Pro. So when you're kind of doing deep reasoning, deep scientific types tasks, but it will switch to Flash to do the tasks that don't need that power. And of course, Flash is faster and cheaper. But for the purposes of this demo, as I mentioned, I'm just going to stick to Flash. But that's how you can just type /model and you can pick the model. Another quick tip, because throughout the codelab today, we're going to be closing Gemini, making some config changes and restarting it. So to quit Gemini, you just type /quit. All of the commands in Gemini start with /, right? So that's how you do that. By the way, when you resume Gemini, you can also resume a previous session. So if you were in the middle of doing something, maybe you were doing something last night, and you've been having a long conversation with it, and it has a bunch of context, and it's read a bunch of files, and then you want to continue, you can just type resume, and it will show you a history of the previous conversations you've been having with it, and you can carry on where you left off without having to reload context. So that's pretty cool as well. Another thing you can do with Gemini CLI is you can set context. And this applies to anti-gravity as well, but here's a file called Gemini MD. And this is the standard way you tell Gemini CLI how you want it to behave. And you can set this file both at a global level, like a user level, and you can do it in a project specific level. And how Gemini CLI works is it mixes those two together. So it always reads the global stuff. And then if you've got a Gemini MD in a specific folder, it will read that and it will add that additional context. But what you can see in my Gemini MD file, can you read it, by the way? Is it big enough? Yeah, okay, good. So here you see in my Gemini MD, it's saying, I'm telling it what my name is. And I say, hey, occasionally refer to me by name. I tell it what my GitHub handle is, and that's useful because when I want it to do interactions with GitHub, it doesn't have to ask me how to find my repos. It will just be able to find it. I tell it how I like it to spell. I tell it what I want it to do when it's writing Python and how I want it to lint the Python and which versions to use and what package managers I like. I also tell it whenever it opens a project, I always want it to look for a to-do.md because that's the way I like to work. I just have a bunch of, effectively use that as a to-do list. And I'll also tell it that I always want it to read these other files that might be in a project, and if it is, to be guided by them. So if I go back to Gemini now, and I was to say something like, "Hey, what's my name?" Hopefully, live demos and all that. Hey, your name is Dasbo. How can I help you today? Okay, that's good. Now let's demonstrate how we build in some of those additional tools I was telling you about. So what public GitHub repos do I have? Please summarize them in a table, including a brief description, the primary technologies involved in those repos, and how many stars are against it. So I submitted that natural language prompt, and the first thing you notice is it's asking me to use a tool. And that's because in order to access GitHub, I've got an MCP tool installed called GitHub MCP, but Gemini needs to check that I'm happy for it to use that tool. So I'm going to say, sure, go ahead and use that tool for the rest of this session. Now you can see it's effectively crafting some queries, getting a response back. And there you go. How cool was that, right? In like 3 seconds, it's pulled back all of my repos. It says it knows what technologies. This one's using Jupyter and Python, ADK, blah, 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 blah. And it tells me how many stars are against each, and it's putting it in the order I asked for, all in a markdown table. I think it's pretty cool when you see that kind of the kind of things you can do. Now, I mentioned, of course, that it asks me whether it's allowed to run GitHub MCP. Now, what you can do within Gemini CLI is you can define policies. These are rules. So in this policy file here, I'm basically saying when you run a shell command, you're allowed to run any of these without asking for my permission. So you'll see they're mostly kind of read-only stuff. So doing an echo, listing files, finding something, all of that kind of stuff. If it wants to run any of those, it won't prompt me. It will just do it. Whereas other stuff that might be more invasive, I want it to check with me. But that speeds up the flow. Otherwise, it's just going to be prompting you all the time, and that's kind of annoying. So that's quite handy. So Gemini CLI then is really powerful because it's got a bunch of out-of-the-box tools, but we can give it power-ups through lots of different ways. MCP servers is one. You've seen GitHub, and we'll talk about that in more detail in a minute. Another way is slash commands. So a slash command is basically a reusable prompt. So if you find yourself typing the same prompts over and over again, you can just package them and call it a slash command. So let's have a look at a couple of examples. So I've got one here which is called review project. The actual slash command, I can't even remember where it is. I'll show you it in a second. But and it's written like a normal, like a regular natural language prompt would be. I start by telling it the role that I want Gemini to play. You know, you're going to be an experienced architect and software developer, and then I give it a task, and I want it to check all of these things: code quality, is it maintainable, does it adhere to best practice, is it well documented, what is it, have I written sufficient testing, all of that kind of stuff. Is there a README? What I'll do now is I'm just going to switch to a project that I was building recently. So this was a personal portfolio project, and a lot of this portfolio is kind of vibe coded. I was documenting as I go. I kind of decided on the architecture, then got Gemini to help me build it. Oh God, I can't believe I'm doing this. I'm going to have to go and change all my I'm going to have to change all my API keys after this call. Please don't steal my stuff in the next hour, okay? Oh Jesus. Okay, moving on. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to run Gemini inside a terminal, inside anti-gravity. That's just a cool way you can run Gemini CLI. So it's quite cool to be able to run it in your editor, because then you've got the context of all your files around you. And now I'm going to tell it to just to run that review command and run against the project. So you see I'm using this slash command. It might take a few seconds, it might take a couple of minutes. So I'll just leave that running in the background and carry on talking while it's running. But it's going to read through the entire workspace and run through that prompt. Okay, and another thing that we can do is we can power up Gemini CLI with skills. And skills, yeah, I'll get into the detail of that later as well. Now, while that's running, let me come back to my other Gemini CLI session over here, and let's have a quick example. So I'm in a folder that I've got called Scratch, and let's see what's in it. So in this folder called Scratch, I've just got some output files. I've got a personal profile picture, and I've got a story. Now, and I've just done a tree command just to show that in the next terminal. But if you don't know the terminal, you don't know that command. So can we just ask Gemini to tell us what's in this folder? So let's do that. So what files are in this folder? Doesn't matter if you do typing errors, right? Gemini understands that. Okay, great. It says it's found this stuff. Okay, that was easy. Tell me about story.md. The story itself was written for another codelab, and here it goes. It's read the story. It's just a markdown file. It's complete fiction. This is what it's called. It's about Commander Dasbo and his squadron of sentient AI piloted starships, and they've all got distinct personalities. And by the way, all of these starships are based on the game Elite Dangerous, and that's sort of relevant for the next prompt. So actually, before I continue, let's go back. Oh, here we go. Meanwhile, the code review has finished. Let's have a look at what it says. Okay, so code quality is good. It's adhering to modern Python standards. We're using async.io, blah, blah, blah. Okay, rate limiting's in place, path traversal prevention's in place, all of this kind of stuff, documents good. So this is all useful, but then I guess the really useful stuff is what are the recommended actions that it's come out at the end. So it's telling me I could improve performance by running a bunch of asynchronous stuff in parallel. What else? I could add some top-of-file doc strings that I've missed in a couple of files. I could change some log. Oh, okay, that's bad. I've got a couple of print statements that I should be using the logger for. But anyway, there you go. It's giving you some output. I could stick that on my to-do list and address it another day. But if you have like genuine security issues in your application or a lack of documentation, whatever, it's going to tell you, and you're going to be able to fix that. So that was the slash command being demonstrated. Now, meanwhile, back here, I probably should have written this prompt and submitted it before I flipped over, but here we go. Create a comic strip version of this story using Nano Banana. Commanded down supposed to be based on the profile photo that it found earlier in the folder. For the ships, use an internet search to get an idea of what the ship should look like, and be sure to include some of the ship dialogue. The ship dialogue's in the story. Now, this is interesting because I've told it to do an internet search to find out what the ships should look like. All of the ships are ships from that game. There's nothing in the story that says that it's from that game, and there's nothing in my dialogue that's in my prompt that says it's from the game. But here you can see the Gemini CLI has worked out that the ships appear to be from the game Elite Dangerous. So it's already inferred that information. It's doing Google searches. It's going to pull back pictures of what these ships look like, and it's going to use it to okay, next it says, okay, now I need to generate the comic strip, and I want to use Nano Banana for it. So it's prompting me again to use that tool. I'm saying yes, please go ahead and use that tool, and it's going to create that, and it will dump it in a local folder. Now that might take a few seconds. So while it's running, let me just share a couple of other things that are useful. So I've said that we can power up Gemini CLI with slash commands, MCP servers, skills, or indeed any combination of those. And a cool thing that you can do with Gemini CLI is you can take any of those or their combinations and package them into a thing called an extension. And when you package that extension, you can share it on GitHub or you could share it with your team. But therefore, there is a whole massive library of these extensions available. And here it is, and it's in that document I shared with you. So 500 odd extensions on here. Let me share this one called Conductor is amazing. It turns vibe coding into like a really robust way to build applications and features, because what Conductor does is you say, I want to build a feature. Conductor asks you a whole bunch of questions about that thing you want to build, building out the context as it goes, building out the tech stack that you want to use, who's it for, what are the users, what's its purpose, what's its look and feel, all that kind of stuff. And then what it will do is it will create a bunch of unit tests for that feature. Then it will run those unit tests, which should at this point fail. Then it will go and build the feature, and then it will run the unit tests again and confirm that the unit tests pass. And if they don't, it'll iterate until they do. And then at the very end of that phase, it will then say, great, I've done it all. Now here's a bunch of steps you can follow as a human user to verify what I've done. And that turns kind of vibe coding that creates kind of dodgy, unmaintainable code into really well-maintained, test-driven output. So that's a very cool feature. Another one is, this is one of mine. This is the ADK docs extension. So what this does is, if you happen to be writing building agents with the Google Agent Development Kit, that is a framework that evolves rapidly and is always changing. And if you just say to Gemini, hey, help me build an agent with ADK, it's going to use old, what was in its training. The model's out of date all the time, right? It's going to hallucinate, it's going to write bad code, it's going to be not following best practices. Oh, by the way, okay, my comic strip has just finished creating, so here it is. That's pretty cool. Here's me, squadron, we have a class 5 wormhole incursion. This guy's saying, please don't hit my engines, the repair deductible is astronomical. This guy is saying, my diplomacy manifesto involves lasers. This one doesn't want his paint to be scratched. Yeah, and at the end it's us saying, I want an Earl Grey. I don't actually like Earl Grey, by the way. I do like coffee. But I thought that's a very cool demo because what it's done is it's combined Nano Banana for generating comic strips. It's combined Google searches. It's combined a local file. It's inferred a bunch of stuff, and it's using local pictures, and it's stuck it all together just with one prompt and built all that kind of stuff. And you can imagine the kind of content creation capabilities you have when you do that sort of stuff together. So that's that. The last thing, I was talking about ADK extension. What this does, if you install this extension, is it basically empowers Gemini with all the latest knowledge about the agent development kit. So when you then ask Gemini to create code for you, it's always going to be using up-to-date best practice, up-to-date code, real samples, and you get high quality code out of it. So that was it for my slightly longer than planned introduction into Gemini CLI and all the cool things you can do with it. And the rest of the session is going to be in the codelab itself. But before I carry on, how are we all doing? Any questions? How is this all for you? Okay, groovy. If no questions, then I will move on to the lab itself. Let's see, where is it? Too many windows. Okay, so here's the code lab. As I mentioned, the goal of this code lab is to demonstrate doing remote control browser interactions from Gemini CLI using natural language prompts, and we're going to use it to do user interface testing. Now, UI testing is a brittle experience, so traditionally you have to learn how to work with the testing framework. You write all of your tests, they work, and then you move a button, or you change a label, or you move one thing inside another thing in your HTML page or whatever, and then your tests break. But wouldn't it be great if, rather than doing that, you could just write tests that are based on the intent? Like, rather than specifically saying the name of a logout button, you can just say, yeah, I want you to log out of this screen, and we'll demonstrate that in a little bit. And then if you go and change the layout or the UI or the labels, nothing breaks. So that's kind of the demo that we're going to go through today. So let's quickly look at the prereqs. We've already installed, we should have Gemini CLI. We've got Git installed. Now we will clone the application. So let me, so feel free to follow along now. Let's see, let me just remove it because I've already done it before. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to clone the demo application from GitHub. So just run the git clone command, and then we can change to that directory. And then we're going to run make install to build the application. Okay, that was easy. And then we'll move on to the next page. And in the next page, we're just going to test this demo application. So all you need to do to test the demo application is run make dev. Okay. Okay, so I've run make dev and it started up the server, and the server is running our demo application. Let's click on it, and here it is. By the way, this demo application was entirely vibe coded. It took about 3 minutes to build it, not a lot of effort here. So first of all, we want to simulate a logon screen, so you have to put in admin and password, and then you log on. And then once you're in, you can see it's kind of got this dynamic page that's simulating some sort of dashboard. Okay, and we've got this button here, exit gateway. So that's it, that's what the demo application looks like. Now, what we want to do now is empower Gemini to be able to remote control this application. So let me come back to here. We talked about the challenge of testing. Right, so how can MCP help us? Right, so now Romin's run quite a few sessions, you know, and had people come in and speak about. Oh, right. Sorry. Make install fails. Yeah. Okay. Make install. Are you running? You're probably running it on Windows in a command prompt, right? And if so, you don't have Linux. You don't have the make command. So what you'll want to do is this, and instead of running make dev, you can run this. Those make commands are just effectively just aliases. They're just shortcuts to do this, right? But those are your two equivalent commands. Okay, and then now you should be good to go. Right, yeah, so MCP. Now, Roman's done loads of sessions on this. He's got loads of blogs on this as well, so you can check that out, and there's some links in the page I shared earlier. But basically, MCP, it's an open standard that allows AI models and agents to interact with the outside world, so working with external tools, APIs, and data. So we often talk about MCP tools as being the hands and your agent or your model as being the brain. So MCP tools, you know, give the brain the hands to actually do something with the outside world. And then the MCP server is kind of like the universal adapter. It allows models and agents to discover the tools it has available, pick the right one it needs for a given request, and then make use of it. So that's so when you do all that, the end result is that you type something in natural language and the agent just does it using the tools it has available. You don't have to tell it which tool to use, it just works it out. And that agent, it could be Gemini CLI, it could be Gemini Code Assistant VS Code, or it could be an agentic application that you've built yourself, right? So you can plug MCP into those. So let's have a quick talk about some MCP servers as examples. We already saw GitHub earlier. Another one is the developer knowledge API. So this is it's a bit like the ADK MCP extension I mentioned earlier, but developer knowledge API basically will empower your agent with knowledge of all of the Google Cloud documentation and all of the Google developer documentation all in one place. So so that is really powerful, because you can then start asking Gemini about anything about Google Cloud and it will be giving you up to the minute best practice answers. Another thing, I think Roman was talking about this in a recent session, is the fully managed remote MCP servers that Google now offers. So you can use those fully. What we mean by fully managed and remote is you don't have to install an MCP server or any application locally. You just point to the thing that Google runs for you, and then that allows you to have natural language interactions with BigQuery, Firestore, Cloud Run, GKE, cloud logging, whatever. And a really cool use case, I think, is the example where, let's say you have a billing, you've got your billing account set up in Google Cloud, and you have billing exports set up so that all of your billing information goes into a BigQuery dataset. And then traditionally, to look at that BigQuery, to understand your billing information, you would have to do some sort of SQL queries against that BigQuery dataset. You'd have to understand the tables. You'd have to do some joins. But with the MCP server, you can just do a natural language prompt. So you can say, what was my most expensive service this month? Or what services are trending up in cost? Or can you identify any spending spikes and what caused them? To the question, does browser MCP restricted to Chrome only? Yes, Chrome and Chromium. And we'll talk about that a bit later, and how we're and then go on to why Playwright is part of the answer to that question. Another really cool one, I blogged on this recently, so you guys might find it interesting, is for those folks that really like Notebook LM. I love it. So Notebook LM gives you kind of, you know, grounded, you can bring in all of this information into Notebook LM and then have it so it's grounded, and then you can use Notebook LM to create podcasts or presentations or videos or whatever. But we can use an MCP server to control Notebook LM from inside Gemini CLI. Actually, I'm thinking I might already have Notebook LM MCP installed. So let me just see if I have, in which case I can just live demo this now. So I could say, what Notebook LM notebooks do I have? Fingers crossed. Oh, and it's asking me whether it can use the tool. Yes, it can use the tool. Okay, and here are all the notebook LMs that I currently have, so that's cool. But in addition to that, I could then query those notebook LMs from Gemini CLI. I could ask it to create podcasts from here, and I could even query across multiple notebook LMs, which is something that you couldn't do if you were just in the UI. So you can start to synthesize information from across those things together. So that's MCP. So what is Browser MCP? Browser MCP is an MCP tool that allows us to remote control the browser. It basically comes in two halves. One of them is the extension that you install into Chrome, just like any other Chrome extension, and then the other half is the browser MCP server that we have to install for our agent. So let's run through the lab now. So first thing you need to do is install the extension. So if you're just looking in the lab, it says click here. It will take you to here. Then you install the browser extension. Mine's already installed, obviously, but it's literally that easy. It takes you about 10 seconds. And once you've installed it into Chrome, then we can connect browser MCP to whatever tab we happen to have open. So in our demo app, assuming you've still got it open, you can click on that, click in here, found the extension, click on it, and click connect. So that is now effectively exposing this tab to be remote controlled. Then the next thing you need to do is install the MCP server into Gemini CLI. Now, oh, by the way, I'm switching to a different tab because I've got one tab open where I'm running my the application, the demo application. It's not Google, but it is safe. So yeah, I'm opening a different tab because I don't want to kill the session where I'm running my where I'm running the application server. Now, if you looked at the codelab a week ago, it would have given you a whole bunch of config that you would have had to install into Gemini CLI in order to install the server. But we don't have to do that because I said earlier you can package anything into an extension in Gemini CLI, and that gives you like a one-line install. So I've done that for you. I've created this extension, so you can copy this line, you can paste it in here. It should take about 10 seconds with any luck. And do you want to continue? Right, and the extension has been installed. And now if I load up Gemini CLI, and you can do the same. Once Gemini is loaded, you can type /MCP list, and you can see all the MCP servers you've got installed. So I've got Nano Banana, I've got the developer knowledge I mentioned earlier, and there is browser MCP, and it's green, and you want it to be green, otherwise it's not working. One thing I just wanted to say, let me show you what this extension actually looks like. I'm going to open it up in GitHub. And what we want to look at is this JSON file, and it's pretty much just this. That is all it needs in order to run the Gemini. So all I've done is I've basically taken that config and made it one-line installable. So that's pretty simple. It's a very simple extension. Okay, so now we've done that, I guess it's the moment of truth. Can we test it? So again, if your application, the demo application is already running, you're good to go. If not, you might need to run make dev again. Remember that you need the demo app to be connected. Mine is. So now what I'm going to do is copy this prompt, and I'm going to paste it in here. Okay, and I'm just going to flip back to here. So it's saying, using browser MCP, connect to this application on localhost. If the application is not showing a login screen, first log out. Note that I haven't told it how to log out because it needs to click the exit gateway button. Then log in as admin and password. Verify that dashboard says system overview. And then okay, now it's asking me whether it can use the browser MCP tool. We expect this. Click allow all server tools for this session, otherwise it will keep prompting you. Oh, and here's the remote control happening. It's logged out, it's put in admin, it's put in password. It's nice to see the mouse moving. It's logged in. and it's finished. And it's given me the results back in a table, just like I asked it to. So I think that's pretty cool. Pretty cool demo. What do you think? Useful? Thank you for the crowd. Okay, so someone asked earlier and said, you know, does browser MCP only work in Chrome? Yes. So if we skip on to the next page, browser MCP has a number of limitations. So yes, it only works in Chrome. It needs an existing browser session. So we had to open the application in this tab, right? And it had to be running. And then we had to connect to it. Oh, by the way, before we forget, everyone at this point, let's disconnect. So go to here and disconnect the MCP, browser MCP, because we're not going to use browser MCP anymore in this lab. So that's disconnected. And another thing is it doesn't support headless operations. So that means when you're using browser MCP, you have to have Chrome installed locally in the same operating system as the MCP server, which is why you can't use it in Cloud Shell. You have to have the browser up and running on your screen. You have to see what it's doing, right? Whereas if you wanted to run, say, automated tests as part of a CI/CD pipeline, you don't want that. You just want it to be able to run without seeing, you know, effectively as a transparent, headless operation. Another thing that browser MCP can't do is it can't work with a local file system. So even though I had it look at the screen and read the screen and create a table with what it found, you know, when it was reading things like what did it have? So it had the network throughput and the uptime. It couldn't like create a screenshot of what it saw. You could make it do that. You know, you could have a more sophisticated prompt where you say use browser MCP to read some stuff and then maybe use another tool, but it's a bit of a mess. And you couldn't do things like upload files to the demo application or download files from the demo application. So that's where Playwright comes in. Playwright is a much more sophisticated tool for these kind of browser interactions. So it can do all of the stuff that I just described as limitations of browser MCP, but more than that, it can do things like have multiple sessions running in parallel. So imagine that you're writing a game, a web app game, and you want to be able to test what happens if you've got multiple users and they're all interacting with each other at the same time. You can do that with Playwright. Now, of course, the downside of using a tool that's much more sophisticated is it requires a lot more knowledge. You have to learn how to use that tool in advance. And this is where skills come in, right? So agent skills are very cool. They're kind of the latest thing in AI and agents. So you can think of a skill as a bundle of domain expertise that you hand to your agent when you need it to do something specific. So I like to think of the movie The Matrix, right? So when the hero jacks in, when Neo jacks in and he needs to learn combat, and 10 seconds later he says, I know Kung Fu. Or when one of the characters says, when Neo says, do you know how to fly a helicopter? And then 5 seconds later she says, I do now. It's like that. Agent skills are like that. So what happens is you provide your agent, like Gemini CLI, with all the agents, all the skills that you think it might need. But it doesn't read all of the content of those skills. It only reads their descriptions, like the one-liner at the top. So this is a thing called progressive disclosure. And the advantage of this is because it's only reading that one line that says what the skill is, it's not consuming a whole bunch of your Gemini context. It's not consuming tokens. And therefore, it's very fast and it's very cheap. Now, at the point that you say to Gemini, I want you to do this, I want you to fly the helicopter, it knows that it read a skill that says how to fly the helicopter, and then it reads the rest of the skill. And the rest of that skill could be detailed instructions. It could be, and those instructions could point to bash scripts. It could point to Python that's embedded in the skill. It could point to other skills or perhaps MCP servers. So the skill can tell your agent to do all of those things and put them together. So I'm just thinking, have I got any skills ready to demo? Let me go back to where I was earlier, and let's hope that I don't reload my my environment. Okay, yeah, here's a skill. This is the skill for Playwright itself, and this was downloaded off the shelf. Actually, with that in mind, let me show you something. This is a website called skills.sh. And here you can find loads of skills for loads of things. This one, Vercel have loads of skills, by the way, and find skills is really useful. But the idea of find skills is if you install that and then you say to Gemini CLI, I want a skill that does a thing, then this skill will teach it how to find that thing and then install that skill. So, so that's quite useful. Another thing that is really useful is that Gemini CLI has a skill builder built in. So if I say to it something like, do you know how to create skills? Hopefully it will say, yeah, I know how to create skills, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, because, and it says it will package the skill into a skill.md file and it will put them in the relevant folder and then that skill's available. Now, a really useful way to use this is, I guess developers have this all the time. You're working with Gemini for 10 minutes and you've tried to do a thing and it turned out to be more complicated than you thought and you've tried lots of workarounds and then after 10 minutes you finally get it working. That is a great point to say to Gemini CLI, can you please now create a skill to automate the thing that we just spent 10 minutes doing? It creates the skill and then the next time you need to do it, it just knows how to find it and you don't waste 10 minutes doing it. That's I think quite a useful hack. Now it turns out that a really useful combination for skills is in combination with a locally installed CLI. So if we do something like install Playwright as a local CLI, and the CLI has quite complicated commands and syntax, and we don't want to learn it, but we can install a skill that teaches Gemini how to work with the Playwright CLI. So that's what we're going to do now. We're going to install Playwright CLI, and then we'll install this skill to teach Gemini how to use it. So at this point, we're just going to run through these commands, right? So again, I'll do it in real time here, and hopefully it all works painlessly. So I'm going to start with, oh, by the way, again, if you're in Linux, you can copy the whole commands. If you're running in Windows, in command prompt, just take the bit before the hash, otherwise you'll just see lots of annoying errors, right? Just like this. So I'm going to install Playwright CLI. Now I'm going to install the Playwright test package. Okay, that was quick. Now I'm going to install some other stuff that the Playwright needs in order to spin up its own browser. Oh, and it's asking for me to type in my root password to do this. That's fine. Okay, and now it's going to install effectively a version of Chrome and Chromium. Oh, hello, what's going on? Oh, okay, it's already installed. Basically, a version of Chromium that Playwright has, that is only for Playwright. That's independent of your Chrome browser that you normally use. And the next thing we're going to do is we'll create a folder to install the skill in. Okay, so where are we at this point? We've installed Playwright. Now, at this point, we're going to install the skill for how to use it. So what this command is doing is it's literally just downloading the skill from an open source Microsoft site where the skill is hosted, because it's a Microsoft tool, right? So I'll just do that. Okay, I expected that because I've already got the skill installed, so it's moaned on my machine, but hopefully it won't moan on yours. Now, let's see if if it's installed properly and it's working. So if I run this command just to launch Playwright CLI, and what I want it to do is open the playwright.dev website. So I'm just going to run that. It's opened up in a different window, but there it is. That's what it did. It spawned this window for me. So this is good. Playwright CLI is installed and it's working. Now, what you'll notice is I put in the parameter -- headed because I wanted to see the browser. Now, by default, you don't see that, but in one of the tests later, I would like to be able to see the browser, but the skill that we've installed doesn't know how to run things in headed operations. So I just want to show you how we would modify that skill to give it extra information. So I'm just going to show you. So this was the skill that you've downloaded. And if you scroll down and you go down to the core section, and you can copy and paste this out of the lab, but I've already done it. All I've done is I've copied and pasted. I've just put in this one line that says, if I want to run in headed mode so we can see the browser, this is the way you do it. And that's all I had to tell That's all I have to put in the skill, and that is sufficient. Now, once you've done that, you've added that skill. Next thing we'll want to do is we will want to relaunch Gemini, because we're relaunching it and it will read the skill because it's there. Now, other thing, what I want you to do at this point is this line here, MCP disable browser MCP. If you type /MCP and then press just /MCP, you'll see a whole bunch of commands that are available. And then if you go to disable and tab, it will show you, oh, these are all the MCP servers you've got installed. I want to disable browser MCP because I don't want it to conflict with Playwright, because otherwise Gemini might get a bit confused about which tool it should be using to remote control. So I'm just going to disable that. It's disabled and reloading. So now, hopefully, everything's ready for us. So I'm going to take this command here. Paste it in. By the way, not in headed mode at the moment, so you won't see a browser. Using Playwright, connect to the application, log in as admin password. Okay, and it's saying, oh, I need to activate the skill. Good, that is a really good sign. I'm going to say allow for this session. So it's pretty much the same prompt as before. Okay. It's running. Next thing, and now it wants me to, because I said I want you to take a screen, right, I can't remember if I read that out. The other part in this prompt that was new is I said take a screenshot of the dashboard and save it to the folder output as dashboard.png, right? So what it's doing now is it's saying, oh, you don't have an output folder, so I need to create one. So I'll say, yes, go ahead and create it. Okay, so it's done it. It's taken a screenshot, it's created it here, and it created the markdown table as before. Now, hopefully, because I can't, hang on, I'm just going to find out where I'm running, because I can't remember where I asked it to. Okay, I'm in home, Darren. All right, so let me just open that folder on my machine so I can show you. So this is where it's put it, and it's created an output. And if I double click on there, there's the screenshot I created. So yeah, I think that was pretty cool. What's left in this? What things to say? Yeah, we didn't have to start the browser. We didn't have to connect an extension. We didn't have to tell it how to log off. In fact, we didn't have to tell it to log off at all because this is a flow that always starts from a clean slate. It's a clean session. You can tell Playwright to use an existing session or to work with multiple sessions, but it starts off with a clean session. So you have no worry that you're already in a session. It created the output file and it put it in the output folder. We can do this other test if we like, which basically, let's just do it. So it's kind of the same prompt, but what I've told it to do is run in headed mode. So it should, with any luck, and it has, it spawned up this browser session. And now you can see it interacting with the browser in real time in headed mode. Oh, yeah, okay. It did everything. I just scrolled down to the end. So, yeah, that is essentially the demo of Playwright. So, what do you think? Any questions or observations about Playwright or about this automation? Okay, cool. How are we doing for time? We've got plenty of time. That's good. So, that's kind of it for the live demo experience, for the CodeLab experience. There's a few things I wanted to say now about some of the tooling. So for those of you that use anti-gravity, this like this anti-gravity here, this is Google anti-gravity. It is a very cool development environment. I tend to use it and Gemini CLI quite a lot, depending on what I'm doing, and I often use them together. But anti-gravity actually has a built-in browser sub-agent. So a lot of the stuff that we just demonstrated using browser MCP and using Playwright is built in to anti-gravity. So you could ask anti-gravity to navigate to a thing, do a thing, and it will take screenshots for you and even video recordings for you, and it calls them artifacts, and you can use that as evidence. So when it's completed a task, it will basically say, here's the evidence that I did the task. So that's quite useful. Because I work in the WSL environment, anti-gravity is a bit fragile with WSL, and so getting things like the browser sub-agent to work it's okay, you can do it, but it's not quite out of the box. I do have a blog on that for those that are interested, but that's one of the reasons I tend to just use Gemini CLI a lot for my browser type stuff. And additionally, Gemini CLI actually do have now a browser sub-agent in their experimental mode. It has similar WSL issues at the moment, but that's being worked through. So you could probably expect that in a couple of months' time, everything that I've just demoed just works out of the box with Gemini CLI. But I think the value is not so much in the exact use case that I've demonstrated, but in the demonstrating how you can install these skills and these MCP servers and then kind of pull them together, because there's always value in being able to do that. If we carry on to the demo, yeah, here I've just illustrated a few other browser use cases for browser automation. So you can imagine where you might, I don't know, spawn a cut. Here's a legacy browser application. Here's a legacy website, and I want to copy data from one to the other. Or maybe you've got an operational issue and you've got some live issues on a dashboard, and you want to screenshot those dashboards. Things like that. There are probably better ways of doing all of those things, but I'm just kind of trying to come up with examples of what might be useful. And that is basically the end of the code lab. If you haven't done so already, make sure you click all the way through, because when you get to the end, Google gives you a badge for completing the code lab that you can add to your profile. But with that, I think we are done with the demo, and yeah, and I'm open to any conversation or Q&A or anything. Thanks, Roman, for keeping up the keeping up the posts in the chat. So much quiet.
Hey, folks, feel free to just step in, maybe just ask the question or even type it out there. Please do so. Even if you got some questions related to Gemini CLI or MCP servers, Darren has written on pretty much all of that. So a little bit out of scope. It's not in the exam today, but he should be able to answer.
I get it, Romin, where you're going. So I wanted to check whether we can automate Android app UI with Gemini CLI.
Is there anyone who would like to take this question? I've not got any personal experience trying this out. I am sure there is something or the other out there, but I'll take down this question. If I get some information on this, I'll pretty much look it up and share in our groups. But if there's anyone who's got information on this, please feel free to either write the answer or just unmute and tell us how it's done. Okay.
I have a question. Hi, Darren.
Hi.
Great presentation. As you know, I use Notebook LM quite a bit, but there's no link at the moment to Atlassian tools like Confluence and Jira and things like that. So I guess MCP is a way I can get some of that information into a useful format to query and so forth.
Oh yeah, that's a really good use case actually. So yeah, you can't just directly connect Notebook LM to Confluence pages, for example, to put in, at least not that I'm aware of. But yes, what you could do with Gemini CLI, actually, if I bring up, where were we? Sorry, too many tabs. Okay. Actually, it'd be easier if I just look up Gemini CLI extensions. and I go back to these extensions library, and if I was to look up Atlassian, right, you will see that there is an Atlassian MCP extension. And with that Atlassian MCP extension, you can give Gemini CLI the power to talk to Jira, to Confluence, you know, whatever. You might need an API key or username or password, all that kind of stuff. But once you've got that MCP extension and you've got the Notebook LM extension, MCP extension, then Gemini CLI can pull those things together. So you could say, read this page or search this Confluence space, find this information, and then import it. You could have it maybe dump it as a PDF, import it in. I don't know the specifics of how you would do it. You'd probably have to work through. But yes, Gemini CLI gives you the power to integrate those kind of things in a way that you couldn't do just using like the Notebook LM browser interface.
Thanks, perfect.
Yeah.
Darren, can you hear me?
Yeah, hello.
Hi, Darren. One question. I have completed also the code labs in a hurry, by the way, because I'm on Windows and therefore I have to adapt some comments. But
Yeah.
cool and it's working, and at the end it displays. But it has, of course, a lot of allow this. How to get rid of this, and maybe what is how I can change it that it
that's
allow.
That's in the policy, right? Can you see on the screen now?
Yeah, I can see.
Right, so you come down, you go into now, if you haven't, I don't know if the policy directory is created by default, because I think I created a policy directory and I created this policy file. Right, so in mine, all of these things are allowed without prompting.
Okay.
But you can do the same thing with MCP tools. You can say allow any tools from this server, or allow specific tools from this server. You can even say allow any tools from this name regardless of what MCP server it is. If I go back to the Gemini CLI, and if we go to the documentation, and let me just do a quick search on policy. There we go, policy engine, right? And this teaches you how to write the policies that you're asking for. Right, and you can give order of precedence, you know, which things override other things. But yeah, but that's basically how you do it. That's how you tell it to just allow stuff. And similarly, you could say, you know, I never want you to be able to run the RM command. You know,
of course,
right?
Be bad.
Well, but by default, it will just ask you, and you might accidentally click yes because you're in a flow, right? So you know, things like that. But yeah, I just find it really useful just to allow it to do the stuff that is basically read only and never prompt me for it.
Okay, I understand.
Okay.
Thanks a lot.
No worries.
Cool demo. Thanks.
Thank you. Oh yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, we can run Gemini CLI in Sandbox, so it's safe and only destroy where it is. Yeah. Can you explain more about Playwright and how to use it? Not really. That's sort of the point. Is that I don't know anything about Playwright. So I'm just using the skill to tell Gemini how to use Playwright, and the skill I've just downloaded off the shelf. I think so. If I go back to skills.sh and I search in here for Playwright, you can find the Playwright skill that's published by Microsoft, and I can click on there and it will show me what the skill looks like. I mean, you don't need to know any of this because essentially all that happens is you do the one-line install here. It installs the skill into Gemini CLI, and now I don't need to know how Gemini CLI works. I just tell Gemini CLI stuff in plain English, like start up a new session, do some stuff, start up another session, do some stuff, you know. Sure, of course you can go to the Playwright website, you know, and learn more about it. Here you go. So this is Playwright, and it's got loads of documentation, and yes, I have looked at the documentation a little bit, but at the end of the day, I guess my objective was to do stuff without having to know how Playwright works. What have I missed? Yeah. Okay, cool. Oh, what do you do if you start seeing quota? What do you do if you start seeing quota exceeded on your Gemini calls? Yeah, that can be a problem, I guess, particularly if you're running on like a free tier. If you're making many requests in a short amount of time. Yeah, I use AI Pro, which I guess has higher quotas, and I pretty much never get the, is it 429? I pretty much never get the quota exceeded error since I've been on Pro. I do run out of quota, so especially when I'm in anti-gravity and I'm doing stuff, and I might, after using it a couple of hours, and it says, yeah, you can't use Gemini Pro anymore, and then I'll fall back to Gemini Flash. And if I exhaust my Gemini Flash, then I'll fall back to Claude, because I can use those in anti-gravity as well. But yeah. Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah. Oh, hi, Emil, by the way. I just spotted the questions from you. Yeah, good question.
Thank you for presentation. It's very cool. I would like to understand if you're talking about full-fledged test automation. So is it possible to see certain kind of example when we have a test case or set of test cases which we process sequentially one by one, and we using a Gemini CLI, and providing.
I have to. Yeah, I have to refer you to my opening statement on this, which is I'm not a UI tester, so I couldn't demonstrate a complete test case. This was a somewhat contrived example that I just wanted to use to demonstrate the kind of technologies, but I would definitely be the wrong person to ask that question to. But if there's other folks here that do have that experience and that knowledge, then please feel free to speak up and offer your help.
Maybe there is certain kind of built-in reporting enabled. For test case.
Well, not in Gemini CLI, right? I mean, Playwright does have like a standard way of creating output from your tests. You'd have to read into Playwright how it does it, but yeah, Playwright has standard outputs, creates a bunch of files. You can assert stuff, you can do all of that kind of thing. Gemini CLI will just produce the output in whatever format you like. So if Playwright is generating a whole bunch of output files, you could say to Gemini, turn this into a web dashboard, turn it into a PDF, turn it into whatever. Gemini can do whatever you want it to do. But Gemini itself doesn't have any inherent knowledge, right, of that stuff. Yeah. Okay. Hello, Arvind. Just saw your face as well. Nice to see you. Okay. I guess we're out of questions. Thank you, everyone. Oh,
Darren,
yeah.
let me ask something. Maybe it might be irrelevant, but it's just coming in my mind. We have Gemini CLI to interact via the terminal.
Yeah.
Would Google be having any tool which is available online rather than accessing on your system, which does provide these capabilities? I understand through the Cloud Console you can access a couple of features, but would that be in future consideration as a product if it is available, like an IDE which is online accessible?
Well, yeah. So Gemini CLI is pre-installed into Cloud Shell for starters, so you can get to it there. Obviously, if you're in Cloud Shell, you've got Cloud Shell Editor, which is online.
Yeah.
And you can run Gemini CLI within Cloud Shell Editor, and again, it's pre-installed, so that's easy to do. And I guess, I mean, if your question is something like if I wanted to use, yeah, and because right, you can use Visual Studio Code. You can run as like a SaaS version.
Yes.
Right now, Anti-Gravity doesn't currently have a SaaS version. there are folks that obviously run it in VMs, you know, in instances in Google Cloud. I think they're looking at a SaaS version, but you don't quote me on it. But maybe that's something Roman knows more about than me.
Yeah, I've put in the links to in the chat. So cloud workstations could be an option right now.
Yeah.
If you want to run, you know, anti-gravity. So I have put in a link to the article too that shows it's a bit of a complex setup, but it's still possible to you know, set up anti-gravity on cloud workstations. But also keep in mind that cloud workstations is not in a free tier or something like that, like you know, Cloud Shell. So there can be a cost to running it. Yeah. So as Darren mentioned, right now Cloud Shell is the only thing that comes with Gemini CLI, and of course it's got a Visual Studio, the editor to it. But in case you want to do a anti-gravity on Cloud Shell, currently that's not available, and the only route right now is if you want to do it in a hosted way, then it's cloud workstations. Yeah.
Thanks, Romin. I'll go through that link.
Yeah.
That's quite an interesting question. Does anyone use Gemini CLI as part of an infra DevOps pipeline to troubleshoot issues? Sort of.
I can take. Okay, go ahead, Darren. I can afterwards. Yeah.
I was going to do the setup CI/CD example. Is that what you were going to do?
No, I was just going to even show them, and if you can on the you know, from your terminal, there's Gemini in autonomous mode. Just give a -p, which is the prompt, and
headless.
It'll be in headless mode. That's the word I was looking for. Thanks. And you can easily pipe this. So basically, what I've seen people do is they take this, they get the output, they pipe it to maybe you know, some other tool, and it's not like a really clean way of integrating it, but it's still possible. Yeah.
Okay, that did work, sort of. Yeah, okay, so that's and the thing that I was going to suggest, but it's slightly different, is one second, let's bring it up. You can type, I think you can type this. There, here we go. This one, set up GitHub. And what that does is it sets up a bunch of it sets up CI/CD actions that will automatically do things like it basically uses Gemini to do PR reviews and triage. So if I had one of my, let's see, I'm not going to show it now, but it is very cool because it takes like 10 seconds to set up in this way. It deploys the workflows into your project in GitHub, and then whenever you push a branch, it automatically runs that workflow, and it runs Gemini, and then Gemini fully reviews it and gives you the response as a comment to your PR, and then you can go ahead and make either you can commit changes in line that it's recommended, or you can come back to your editor, make some changes, go back, commit those, go back into GitHub, type /Gemini review, it will redo the review. And it's quite useful because I find that for whatever reason, if I'm doing like a review locally in my workspace versus the review that Gemini is doing, where it has no other context other than what you've committed, it does come up with different stuff. And I find that the Gemini that's invoked as part of the PR in GitHub just captures loads of stuff that I don't catch locally. So that's quite useful. And it massively reduces the burden on the folks that would historically have been doing all the PR reviews. Sure.
All right. Yeah. Thanks, Darren, for sharing it. Thanks, Romin, for that pipe thing. I was not aware.
Cool. Quick request for the EPAM folk on here that are coming through the EPAM event system. If you could, do the standard feedback on there, give a badge if you want. you know, we all love a badge, but that's just for the EPAM folk. Thank you. Okay. Oh, yes.
Well, Harshad here. I have one question. I'm coming from maybe the Azure background because we have Copilot extensively implemented in our organization. So if you can give me one liner, GitHub Copilot versus Gemini. So I'm asking this in terms of we are trying to adapt to something better, but it's like the enterprise thing here. So which path should be better going forward?
Well, I mean, I have a view being like a huge Google fan, but
yeah, same here.
but yeah, so I think at the end of the day, there, you know, there's equivalent capabilities, but I just love working in because I like working in the Google ecosystem, and everything I do revolves around Google Cloud, Google tools. It's just much easier and makes much more sense for me to be using Google agentic tooling, and so I do, and it will be my default. But I'm not going to comment on like GitHub Copilot capabilities. It's not something I use, so I'm just not best placed to comment. But I'll open that up to other folk.
Yeah, sure, no issues.
Obviously, the right thing to do is to switch to Google, though. Yeah. Always.
Well, if our CEO says yes, then definitely.
Yes. Done deal.
But I think in all fairness, Harshad, I would still suggest to you, if you look at even the tools that we are bringing out, we do allow for integration of other models. So if you look at even anti-gravity, for example, you do have a choice of, switching the models out there. Plus, I think earlier there was a question asked whether we could use Gemini CLI with any local LLMs. And there's an article which shows how to do that with, the Olama running on your local machine.
Yeah.
So, but then of course, you need to make sure that the models that you use are also capable of, having an ability to look up tools, invoke them, and so on. Some of the smaller models may not have the capability, or I would say the ability to pick the tool which is the right one for the job. So it opens up a lot of other questions. But I think to summarize, I would say just give it a shot. Look at our tools, see if certain models work better. I'm pretty sure that for certain kinds of use cases, whether it is to do with coding or design or anything else, certain models do it much better. I'm not going to say just one model works best, though I could be biased. I could say something else, but I'll just be fair to say, just see what works best. And these things are changing so rapidly. If you look at the scorecards, you find every 2 or 3 days someone is at the top. So I think it just it boils down to your use case and what works. Great products from pretty much everyone out there.
Yeah, exactly. And Romin, I asked this in the sense that we have two different streams in same organization. One where we have like all the community editions where we have agent registry, MCP server, then we have governance as well. We have created a couple of agents also to do certain tasks. And the other bit is this extensive use of Copilot. And it's difficult, for one person to get into both the domains. If I talk about the organizations, one is Google side, other is Microsoft side. So that's why this question. But understood. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Yeah, sorry, maybe I have missed your answer, Darren, but there was a question from me and from other guy is what to do with sensitive data when we run with Gemini CLI. So you have entered into the Playwright and into the browser MCP, you have entered your credentials. What to do in real scenario when As I understand, that credential will go to the LLM, so Google will know it, will log it, and so on. How we can handle that in reality on production?
Well, I think in this kind of contrived example of a UI test case, you know, you would never be giving it, you would never be given your test production usernames and passwords to log into a website. Then, you know, beyond that, when you're interacting with Gemini through a tool like Gemini CLI, or indeed just things like the Gemini application on the web, if you're using an enterprise version of the product, then Google's not going to be taking any of the information that you supply in that. So it doesn't take your data, and it doesn't use it to train your models. If you're using the kind of open free version, it can train on your data. At least that's my understanding. Correct me if I'm wrong, but if you're using an enterprise or a paid version, it won't.
Okay, thank you.
Cool. All right, we're all done then, I guess. Roman's posted in the feedback form, so it'd be great if you could fill that in. But yeah, Roman, shall I hand over to you to close now?
Yeah, I've just put the feedback link again, just in case you've not filled up. And keep in mind that we'll share the recording and also trouble you again with the feedback link, you know, by tomorrow. And you'll also see that we've got a couple of links to our Discord and WhatsApp group. So in case you want to just be notified when we have our next events, that's great too. Plus, before I end, you know, Darren, thanks a lot for the session, for putting it together. I know it takes a lot to get this going, though it may just look easy because that's the way you made it look. But you know, there's a lot of effort going beyond, for this. So thank you so much for it. And to everyone else, you know, if you've got a topic to talk about, feel free to reach out to any of us, and we should be able to schedule you to do any of these sessions too. And it could be Google, it could be Google AI, Google Cloud, anything that sort of even helps out in this area. Everything is good, you know. So feel free to reach out any point in time. Thanks again for joining in. It's been almost an hour and a half. So you know, that's testament to what you've done, Darren. Thank you so much once again. And to everyone, have a good day. Yeah, thank you, Darren.
Thanks,
Thanks,
you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.